Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Deborah Young, and I'm CEO of the RegTech Association, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to help moderate and present on our RegTech Edge No Borders program on fraud and scams. As it is our custom to do in Australia for the guests from overseas, in the spirit of reconciliation, we like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of our country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea and community. And we pay our respects to elders past and present and extend a very warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends with us here today. And a very, very warm welcome to all of you. I can see that there are more people filing in as we speak. For some time now, we have been at the RegTech Association ramping up our efforts around fraud and scams. And this is because we can clearly see that our data is telling us that this is a growth area and it's an area of high focus for institutions and regulators alike. It's no surprise given their focus and mandates around consumer protection. We're going to hear shortly from the Global Anti-Scam Alliance about what's happening in the world around fraud and scams. But in Australia, the policy settings are now in place that could see firms fined up to $50 million if they do not maintain a strong scam defence or have very clear pathways for compensation. So there are 50 million reasons why this is very high on the agenda right now. And we'll hear more about that from Rhonda Luo from the Australian Financial Crimes Exchange a bit later. Today, we took more than 230 registrations from 20 countries, and there are about 30 financial institution reps and also a good deal of regulators from all over the world online. If they don't join us today in person online, they will most certainly be picking up the recording tomorrow when it is sent out. There's also been, around fraud and scams, a lot of increased interest from RegTechs all around the world. And today we have 7 fantastic RegTech solution providers who are going to come and showcase a little bit about what they can do. Before we jump into proceedings, though, there's just a little bit of housekeeping. Today will be recorded, as I mentioned, and every delegate will receive a link to that recording. Cameras and mics off, please, unless you are presenting. Thank you very much for that. We ask that any and all questions be asked in the chat, please. Don't be shy, pop them in there. I've already spoken to the presenters who will jump directly onto the chat to answer questions directly for you. There will also be some polls that come up now and then, and we'd appreciate your input as these help us with industry trends and the quality of the program. Speaking of which, we are ready for our first poll question, which I'm going to ask Nathan to pop up for us. People are often reticent to admit to this, and I know that my own father didn't tell me that he'd been scammed for many, many weeks after 2 phone calls where he shared his credit card details, not once but twice. And I myself was scammed a few weeks ago when I bought some fake goods from a vendor who I might add who is still freely operating and moving about the world. So none of us are immune, but we would be very interested to report back if you answer this poll for us, please, and I'll recap with the results at the end of the session. So let's get right into it. I am delighted to invite to the virtual podium George Abraham, who's the Managing Director of the Global Anti-Scam Alliance. Are you there, George?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I wanted to say good morning, but good afternoon, I think it is.
It is indeed, and thank you for getting up so early. If people out there can do the math, George is in the Netherlands, so he's got up very early for us this morning. So as I was saying, George is not only the Managing Director of the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, but he is also Managing Director of Scam Advisor, which is a global blacklist for malicious websites. And he is also an e-commerce professor at the TIO Business School. So thanks very much for joining us. George and I are going to do a very brief, fireside chat here. George, the RegTech Association, are committed to accelerating adoption of RegTech. That's our vision, and our mission is to create a global centre of excellence around the vendors who can solve the greatest problems that we have. And as part of that mandate, we have a theme called Protecting People. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a backdrop of where we're coming at this from. But we've recently signed an MOU with your organisation, the Global Anti-Scam Alliance. And I was hoping to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about GASA and your vision and mission, and why collaborations with organisations like ours is so important.
Thank you very much, Deborah, and thank you very much for having me. I think the poll already says it all. I see 41% says, yes, I've been scammed. And that figure is no surprise to us. Actually, I believe that if you've never been scammed in your life, maybe you've not been alive. I mean, we all are taking risks. We sometimes are tired. Anybody can get scammed. And we do a study every year amongst 50,000 consumers worldwide. And we see that people with low education, high education, rich, poor, across all the regions are getting scammed. And based on our study, we estimate that last year, more than $1 trillion was lost in scams, actually. One of the biggest challenges we have is that, according to the World Economic Forum, only 0.05% of these cyber criminals are actually being prosecuted. So we have a huge challenge.
Yes, indeed. I remember shooting a very quick video during the Sydney Marathon last year, and I think the number was 25,000 runners, and 25,000 was also the number of people that have been scammed just in the state of New South Wales last year. So it's a lot of people. This is a scourge on our society for sure. My second question really is probably about what are you seeing as the key priority areas of focus from a global perspective? You're in a unique position given that you have so many global parts to GASA and different chapters all around the world. So what are the key areas of focus in fraud and scams from your perspective?
Yeah. So where we as the Global Anti-Scam Alliance focus on are basically three pillars. We have about 150 members, including the big tech companies such as Google, Meta, Amazon, banks, telecom operators. We really try to become a global organization across all the industries, because we really think that the problem around scams is a global problem, and it cannot be solved by only the banks or only by government or only by police. We need to work together just as the cyber criminals do. So what we try to achieve are basically, we have three pillars. One is facilitating knowledge and networking. So we organize 3 summits every year, one in Asia, one in Europe, and one in America. And actually many Australians are joining us at our summit in London on the 26th and 27th of March to share what they are learning and doing in Australia. We do a lot of research. We publish about 30 reports annually on the state of scams in Australia, Taiwan, China, Brazil, Germany, you name it. And we also want to define concrete solutions. So one of our first concrete solutions we're now building up with our 150 members is the global signal exchange. So what we try to do to counter scams is really tying all the organizations together, share knowledge, but also really define better solutions.
Yes, indeed. So I'm just conscious of time. So how you mentioned your London event. I'm attending that in March. I'm really looking forward to that. But how can people engage with GASA going forward? And in particular, since we've now got this memorandum of understanding, how can people get on board with what you're doing? How can they engage with you?
Yeah. We're very happy that we were able to sign a memorandum of understanding and work together with your organization. People are very welcome to join us. I will put our website in the chat. You can join our summit both virtually as well as physically. I know it's a terrible long trip, but we're also organizing a summit in September in Singapore, which is a little bit closer by. Maybe to wrap things up, what I think might be of interest to you, because you have many people from Australia also here. One of the things we're going to push for in Europe is that every country should have a national anti-scam center. And we're very happy that your national anti-scam center is also joining us to share how they are setting things up and how Australia is trying to fight scams. And we hope that the countries in Europe will take an example of that. So I'm very happy to work together, and I look forward to seeing you in London, Deborah.
Thanks very much, George. Really appreciate your time and for having gotten up so early to join us here. And so I bid you a good day. Have a lovely day. Please do stay on if you would like to, because now we have our second polling question coming up. And this is about the different ways that we can fight fraud and scams, and which of the following do you think are the most important? You can select one or more or all of those, and I will share that at the end as well. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you for having me.
You can turn your camera off now and enjoy your coffee. Thank you. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce you to Rhonda Luo from the Australian Financial Crimes Exchange. Rhonda heads strategy and engagement there, and she previously worked in policy roles at the Australian Bankers Association and indeed at ASIC. And we've asked Rhonda to join us today to give us a bit of an overview on the current fraud and scams policy landscape in Australia and the role of technology. Welcome to you, Rhonda.
Thanks for having me, Deborah.
I'm very grateful to have you here today. I thought we should just start. Maybe do you want to give a brief description around the Australian Financial Crimes Exchange? Just tell us a little bit about you, and probably a similar thing, how can people engage with you as well?
Sure. So the AFCX, our core mission at the AFCX is information sharing among trusted parties. So we have been working with banks and law enforcement for a number of years to really get help these companies and these entities to share trusted evidence and intel with each other. And more recently, with the scourge on scams and the spotlight on scams, we're also broadening our partnerships into telcos and some of the tech platforms. So similar to what Gus is doing on the global scale, we are doing within Australia. So working with all the companies across a range of sectors, and of course, working very closely with our National Anti-Scam Centre. And it's again all about getting the right information to the right people who can take action on that. And by doing that, making it harder for scammers to operate in Australia.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you for that. So can you unpack a little bit about the regulatory landscape for fraud and scams in Australia right now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So obviously the big news in recent weeks is the Scams Prevention Framework legislation passing into law. So the legislation sets up a framework with high-level principles that requires banks, telcos, and social media companies to have good kind of internal structures and processes to prevent, disrupt, and respond to scams. And in the future, the framework allows other sectors such as super and crypto to be brought into scope. Under the framework, the minister and regulators, including the ACCC, can set more specific industry codes as well as other rules and guidance. There's been a bit of debate about that. My personal views, this approach is the right one because it allows the detailed obligations to be tailored for the situation and to be updated more quickly than compared to if I have to go back to Parliament every time. We also have other regulators taking action in scams. So ASIC has recently written to superannuation trustees, highlighting the trustees' role in detecting and preventing fraud and scams. ACMA, the Communications and Media Authority, has been tasked by our minister to finalise rules setting up an SMS ID registry by the middle of this year. ACCC, of course, continues, among other things, with its inquiry into digital platform markets, and the Reserve Bank has spoken about its interest in preventing scams in payments to maintain consumer confidence in digital payments. So a lot going on, Deborah.
Yeah, that's right. So then that begs the question, what is the role, and one of the reasons why we're here today, but what is the role for technology in this space?
Yep, that's a great question. So Australia's generally taken a principles-based approach to regulation, and the scams prevention framework does the same thing. So a lot of detail is being left to industry codes to flesh out the high-level principles, and that includes, how banks and telcos and social media platforms will have to go about detecting scams, responding, and very importantly, how these companies will share scams intelligence with each other and with the ACCC. That's also a lot of that detail about the how and what kind of response is required will be determined by the rules. So because it's a principles-based approach, it should allow companies to use new technologies and solutions as they and to trial new solutions to help to meet their regulatory obligations. And I think given the industrial scale of scams that we're seeing, and Gus has referred to it, ACCC's issued regular Australian reports about it, given the amount of bad stuff we're seeing on our phones and in our socials, I don't see how we can meaningfully disrupt scams without using technology. So just to give a couple of examples, so what kind of technology can the companies use to identify scams intelligence, figure out what is verified intelligence, share it, and if we're going to see a lot more volumes of intelligence being shared under the prevention framework, how will we use technology to triage that volume of information and maintain records about how we're responding? Right. And then in the practical application, how does a company detect anomalies or patterns, and even how do they create intelligent warnings for customers?
Yeah, indeed. And so finally, what's next for the SPF legislation?
So the next step is really for the minister and the regulators to designate the first three sectors and make industry codes and rules. So as I've said, I think it'll be important for the rules and codes to facilitate the use of technology, not just be technology neutral, but to be written in a way that allows technology and automation, APIs and all kinds of things to be used, and not assume there's a human somewhere in the process, taking action or performing a review. So it'd be a very interesting year ahead. And probably the final point to make is our Ombudsman, AFCA, has also said to the Senate committee that we need to rethink scams external dispute resolution. So which is really interesting because that also points to a possible role for technology in that EDR process to help improve consumer experiences and outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's exciting times ahead. And I've just noticed that there's a question on the chat that I'll allow you to go and address if you can. And Ken, I also noticed that you've talked about a scam prevention framework report that's been written by FeedSci. Please feel free to add that into the chat so other people can download that. Rhonda, thank you so much for your time. We're now at the very important part of the business part of the program, which is actually looking at some fantastic technology. So I am now going to ask Kimmo from FNA, who Kimmo also happens to be one of our global ambassadors, but just for fun and because we have an international cohort both on the line and presenting today, I'm just going to ask you to start your presentation by telling us as well where you're beaming in from.
Thanks a lot. So great to be here. It's great to be a member and ambassador of the RegTech Association and to take part in this important event today and to showcase our national fraud portal technology. So my name is Kimmo Soramäki. I'm the founder and CEO of FNA. So the National Fraud Portal is a real-time cross-payment trail a cross-bank national infrastructure to counter fraud and especially scams, related to instant payment systems. At its core, it helps banks and fintechs to identify fraudulent payments and to freeze stolen monies before criminals get them. Each one of the bullets is essential there. The collaboration of the banks in the system takes place in real time. Speed is of essence before the criminals get the money, beyond reach using the money mule networks. It's cross-payment system, so the most important system to cover is usually the instant payment system, but other ways of moving money need to be in scope too. It's cross-bank. Criminals use mules at different banks to make it difficult to trace funds. So banks have difficulties doing it alone, so they need to collaborate. And it's a national utility to do this. Often is spearheaded by the banking association or a risk center by the banks, the central bank or the police, depending on country. We have in the last couple of years been helping Malaysia build their national fraud portal, and it went live April last year. The quote from the central bank governor explains it quite well. So with the national fraud portal, the NSRC, which is the National Scam Response Center, which is the local anti-scam center, which we talked about earlier, is now equipped with an end-to-end automated process from managing fraud reports, validating and tracing stolen funds, to sharing alerts among financial institutions to trigger prompt action. It's used today by several hundred case officers from pretty much all the 48 banks in Malaysia and the fintechs, and also from the law enforcement. Some of the key metrics that have come out is that the freezing rates for funds, so the amount of monies that are reported as stolen that can be still found in the banking system, jumped from 0.5% to 30%. And if the consumers promptly report the cases, actually 100% recovery rate is quite often achievable. And it also reduced the time to investigate cases by 75% to 30 minutes, so they can very quickly, with this automated system, resolve cases. Today, we're engaging with over 50 countries globally on the national fraud portal concept. After Malaysia, we've started building one in Indonesia a year ago, and we have several other countries starting to go live this year. We see the highest urgency to do something about scams in Southeast Asia and the Middle East and Africa, so countries that have recently built instant payment systems, as well as countries with advanced payment systems in the West, like in the Nordic Baltic countries in Europe or Canada or Australia. So how to get started? We believe that the key pillar of the portal is the ability to track and trace stolen funds across banks in real time. And this is mostly what we are, or actually in all of the cases, what we're doing with all our clients first. So the reason for this is that, first of all, it allows to prevent monies going to the criminals, which make it more costly for the criminals, but it also identifies a lot of mule accounts as part of these chains, which you see on the right. And this information can then be shared with all banks. Banks can use this information in their KYC processes and also to make in their decisions whether to put payments through to non-mules or not. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but very importantly, it also enhances the ability to do any predictive modeling because the data that is collected through this system about fraud can then be used by training AI models to score transactions or score accounts much better than with the existing data. But we don't stop here. So this year we're building an ecosystem together with several other vendors where they can provide their solutions via the portal. These can be, for example, to score transactions based on the national data, or integration with law enforcement for automated collection of evidence and bundling of many smaller cases together so that they go better through the courts, which are quite often needed to return the actual monies back to the consumers, or other solutions like verification of payee. So everything works on a fundamental same data layer, same AI models that help this integrated system perform better as a whole. The benefits of the system accrue to multiple stakeholders in addition to consumers, such as the central bank and the supervisors, getting more accurate information, consumer protection, payment system operators, law enforcement agencies, financial intelligence units, and so forth. So it is intended as an integrated system that provides benefits to multiple stakeholders in the country. How to get started is a common question, and that question comes very quickly. Who is the owner and who is the operator of the system? Different countries are taking different routes. We see some countries taking the police taking the lead. In other countries, it's the banking association taking the lead. In other countries, the central bank or the supervisor making it as a supervisor requirement, or the central bank corralling everyone together to solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Kimmo, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Okay, next we have Anthony from RegTech. Do you want to tell us where you're beaming in from today, Anthony? If there's any questions for Kimmo, please put them in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Deb and Nathan, for having me on. Yeah, I'm dialing in from sunny Northern Beaches, Avalon in Sydney.
Very nice. Your time starts now.
Brilliant. So maybe we'll go to the next slide. So my name's Anthony Quinn. I'm the founder and the CEO of RegTech Intelligence. So RegTech is a RegTech business. We were founded in 2015. We specialize in financial crime risk assessment technology. We're believers that financial crime risk assessments are really at the heart of being able to properly identify and assess financial crime risk in order to be able to build kind of appropriate and proportionate control frameworks to help mitigate and manage that risk. We do that for a number of industry sectors. We've got clients in 20 industry sectors and 20 countries, and we have two main platforms. The first is AML Accelerate, which I'll go into in a second, the same with the risk assessment platform. AML Accelerate is really a solution that's really designed to help organisations assess money laundering, terrorism financing and proliferation financing risk assessment. It's designed primarily for small and mid-sized businesses, and it helps to guide them through that process of assessing their risk and then building an AML program that's appropriate and proportionate to those risks. The other platform that we have is also a risk assessment, but it's been designed to be risk domain agnostic. And so we have built a number of content modules aligned to various financial crime and non-financial crime topics. And these are really like libraries of risks and controls and control tests to assess sort of design and operational effectiveness. So it covers fraud, also covers money laundering, obviously, as fraud is a kind of a predicate offence to money laundering. So maybe the next slide, please. So our customer base is pretty diverse. So we geographically split across three main regions. We work with fairly large clients in the banking and investment management space. And we work with a lot of credit unions and fintechs, payments companies, and also some a number of gaming firms that utilise our technology to really strengthen their defences against financial crime. Next slide, please. So just kind of digging in a little into the AML Accelerate platform. As I mentioned, this is designed for small and mid-sized businesses. The risk assessment itself has been tailored to four main industry sectors: financial services, gaming and wagering, high-value good dealers, and gatekeeper professions. Obviously, Australia is one of the last to be regulated, accountants and lawyers and so on. So it basically guides clients through a process of providing company information and context, really establishing nature, size, complexity, guides them through a risk assessment looking at environmental risk, customer, channel, product and service, and geographic risk. It helps them to assess the design and operational effectiveness controls, and then start to build an AML policy and program document that helps them to kind of mitigate and manage risks. Next slide, please. So we've tailored the AML program to AML laws in a number of countries. So we've covered 75 countries so far. It probably speaks for itself. So next slide, please. We also support these industry sectors. So as I mentioned before, financial institutions obviously broken down into a number of sub-industry sectors, as is gaming and wagering. So to cover things like bookmakers, betting agencies, online and physical gaming venues like casinos, hotels, pubs and clubs. All of the tranche 2 industry sectors, so accountants, lawyers, real estate, trust and company service providers, as well as luxury good dealers, precious metal and stones, etc. Next slide, please. So that was our sort of solution that covers the small and medium-sized businesses. This is our solution that's tailored for medium and large-size enterprise. So we have our product architected along the lines of the ISO 31000 risk management framework, and all of these kind of elements within that framework are kind of basically features and functions within the platform. Next slide, please. So this platform is really designed to be very flexible, recognizing that every risk management framework is completely different. So there's really 2 sides to the application. One is really setting it up and configuring it to the risk management framework, configuring it to different risk methodologies for different organizations, building risk models, aligning weights and scores, importing answer sets. So all of the kind of the prep work that's needed. And then there's a process to execute risk assessments. We talk a lot around digitization. Essentially, most organizations are doing risk assessments on spreadsheets, and we talk about digitizing those within our platform, and then basically automating it. So we have an API data-driven risk assessment capability, so people can feed data into the risk assessment and generate inherent risk indicators and aggregate those risk and control assessments across the enterprise, just giving them a kind of an instant view of the risk. So next slide, please. So that's it for me, but in the deck that we'll show, there's a number of videos, a number of value propositions, and if anybody wants further information, please just reach out. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Anthony. I should also mention that Anthony is on the advisory committee of the RegTech Association and has been a foundation member, so with us from the beginning. So please, if you've got any questions for Anthony, or Anthony, if you want to share anything on the chat, please feel free to do so. So very delighted now to have with us Tejal from FeedZai, who's going to give us a presentation. And where are you beaming in from today, Tejal?
In from London. Not so sunny
London. Oh, so you're also up very early. Thank you very much for being with us. I will start your timer now. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm Tejal Kaur. I'm an SME for fraud and identity at FeedZai. Thank you for having me. We're going to be talking about all the incredible things FeedZai is accomplishing on the front line of fraud and scams. Next slide, please. Here are just a few headlines where FeedZai has been asked to share our expert knowledge with news outlets globally. We have partnerships across the world with various organisations, the Global Anti-Scam Alliance being one of them who has spoken today. In addition to that, I'd like to draw your attention to the most recent press coverage that we've had, but being our announcement of a joint partnership with MasterCard, where we'll be protecting more consumers and businesses from scams using our AI purpose-built technology. Next slide, please. So who are FeedZai? So we have a global presence. We boast some of the world's biggest banks, biggest financial institutions as our clients. We process around $8 trillion worth of transactions a year. That's around 4 times the GDP of Australia. In addition to that, we protect over 1 billion consumers a year as well. Next slide, please. So we're an end-to-end financial crime prevention platform. We cover all 3 risk ops segments. So that's AML, transaction monitoring, and also behavioral biometrics. Our platform can be deployed on a one provider, one platform basis, or we can also be more flexible and tailor it to each client and be deployed on a modular basis to ensure that we're addressing key gaps. So through the end-to-end flow, FeedZai's aim is to change detection into prevention. We intercept the fraudster at every possible point, from account opening all the way to device provisioning, authentication, even before a transaction's been made. And this is really using
our automated machine learning techniques, which are absolutely game-changing for dynamic feature and model training. There are no need for lengthy maturation periods and things like that. All of our products allow us to go in and stop fraud exactly wherever in the journey it is happening. Next slide, please. So Feedzai believes in all of the data all of the time. We ingest over 1,000 data points per second that are all exposed in the risk engine and there to use for clients. We allow our customers to harness literally all of the data all of the time, which, as somebody working up until very recently in the fraud analytics arm of a global tier 1 bank, I cannot overstate how important this is and what a critical component this is for working in fraud and working against scams. And this isn't a static effort by Feedzai either. Our investment department receives our research department receives huge investments to ensure that we are staying on the forefront of changing fraud MOs, dynamic regulatory environments, and also on a more granular basis, ensuring that we are best in class for approaches such as inbound payments. We are building strong partnerships with our clients to ensure that it's not a case of, okay, we're going to give you this technology, we're going to give you the inbound API, for instance, and let you kind of get on with it. We are there for the guidance. We are there with our years of expertise to make sure that every single piece of technology is working in exactly the way it was intended to address every client's needs. Next slide, please. So what does all of this mean in a global context and in a real life context? So here's one of many examples where Feedzai's value has really shone through. As a global bank with a legacy system that's prone to outages and slow processing times, this client needed a fraud system that could handle their scale and volume. And within the first month of deployment, using Feedzai's transaction solution, Feedzai was able to risk score in real time over 40 million transactions without any outages. Furthermore, Feedzai increased the fraud detection value by 5%, while reducing alert volumes by 15% in an increasingly NPS-driven environment where banks are holding on to as many customers as they can, with scam performance and scam treatment being listed as key factor for attrition rates in customers. The bank has since further strengthened its use of the transaction fraud solution to create consistency across Case Manager and its operations, both onshore and offshore, and we are helping the client utilize visual link analysis tooling in its mule strategy to close down mule networks. And this is just one example of the effectiveness of Feedzai's solution and its ability to address fraud and scams, detection, mule detection, and increasing a seamless experience for customers. Next slide, please. I'll leave you there and I'll pop my information in the chat box. If there's any questions or queries, please do not hesitate to get in touch. Thank you,
Tejal. Martin already has a question for you, so you've got a job to do already. Thank you very much for getting up early and joining us from London. Our next presenter is Slay from Cube3 AI. Slay, I'm going to start your 5 minute. Do we have you? Yes, there you are. I'm going to start your 5 minutes now, and at 4 minutes 30, I'll pop my camera back on. Thank you.
All right, amazing, everyone. I'm not sure you can see my video, but we'll just go ahead and push forward. My name's Slay. I lead up our sales function here at Cube3. At Cube3, we're combating fraud and scams from, say, the blockchain and crypto side of the world. So next slide. Just to be a bit, say, specific as to the exact type of crime or fraud that we're preventing, it's authorized push payment fraud happening on crypto. The obvious statement is that this is growing and escalating universally. For us on the crypto side of things, we see this, say, crippling our industry altogether. The common stat on the right is something like 50% of all fiat to crypto transactions fail. A lot of this is due to an overly, say, risky sentiment towards crypto, and it's for good reason, right? The kind of message that I kind of want to articulate here today is that while this is a universal problem, we forecast and predict that more and more of this is going to come on chain. So if you go to the next slide, kind of the obvious reasons are going to be, well, every push payment or every crypto payment is a push payment. And then for scammers, it's great for them. It's a great vehicle for exploiting users. And if users send funds to a crypto address, those are gone across the world at the speed of the internet. The non-obvious kind of notions around this happening on crypto is, well, we think of scams as a, say a financial and a low sophistication monetary sort of decision. And so crypto presents a very cheap and inexpensive mule account. I can spin up hundreds of wallets addresses and deliver those one-to-one to each individual victim. But most importantly, if you go to the next slide, we think that the reason why more and more scams are coming towards crypto is because the tooling just hasn't evolved to the level that it has in other industries, right? So when we speak to crypto natives, they typically look at these sort of solutions on your screen as their deterrents. KYC, tracing. On one side, yes, I am Slay Huff. I pass KYC with flying colors. That's a Web 2 data solution from our definition. On the right, think of it more post-factum tracing and forensic solutions. The key question that we're aiming to solve, though, is how do we actually prevent a crypto transaction from actually processing? And to do that, go to the next slide. We built Cube3 as a purpose-built solution for this exact problem. The way that we do this is we start with any crypto address, wallet, contract, transaction, and we look at two sides of the fence, right? So first and foremost, we're experts in blockchain data and behavioral understanding and interpretation of that data. But secondarily, we have to originate our data upstream and understand where scams originate, say across dark web, social media, Twitter, Telegram, X, Y, and Z, but then come on chain. We also deploy AI agents to go speak with scammers and understand what crypto address are they aiming to exploit users with. When we're speaking or connecting with those users, they'll give us a crypto address. We're going to take that down, distill it into a risk score, and triangulating all of this data, we're going to use AI and machine learning to look for code patterns, intent, sentiment. As we see behavior unfold on chain, we'll heal risk scores or we will increase those based on what we see actually unfolding on chain. If you go to the next slide, this is just kind of a simple slide to say, hey, a lot of the businesses that we work with, they use all the tools that I mentioned, and they build all their fraud detection solutions internally as well. We see and detect risky transactions in addition to that. Here's just a quick example of finding, say, 143 bits of additional fraud for one of our users. And if you keep pressing forward into the next slide, kind of our mission is really simply this. It's probabilistic and speed in nature. What we aim to do is to help users and companies prevent the scam from actually happening on chain, so you don't have to go trace and track down these funds, right? To do that, everything we do is probabilistic and risk scored in nature. So as things escalate, we advise different actions or workflows based on that. And then go to the last slide. Thanks, Nathan. This is just a simple visualization of our UI, right? So this is a transaction and a participant. This is a very risky transaction, but this is at our 100 score risk level. You can see the labeled data that we're detecting around fraud, and in some cases, say compliance and cyber risk. This is essentially when we work with vast and major wallet providers on chain, they aim to use this via our API and actually prevent, say, users from falling into these attacks. Now, if I flip that and kind of think about kind of an external lens into how regulators, financial TradFi is looking at crypto, they're now using Cube3 to go and evaluate major VAS and understand by, say, peering through the VAS, what is the effectiveness of these VAS as far as their consumer protection methods, right? We help them look through this into crypto and understand what distribution of their customers and users are actually falling susceptible to these sort of scams, and then communicating that back to banks and traditional finance. And if you want to find us at Cube3, we try to make it easy to do. You can pause the slides. You can come to our website. I'll drop my email on here as well. We'd love to chat with you and kind of share with you examples and how we're dealing with scams on chain. Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you very much, Slay. Thank you very much. There are already some questions for you on the chat, if you wouldn't mind popping on there to answer those. Now, next we have Philip from Feature Space. Where are you beaming in from, Philip?
from sunny Sydney today, Deborah.
Oh, there you go. Well done. Well done. It is a little bit warm here today.
It is a little. So
Indeed.
thank
I'll
you
let you
very
get on with
much.
it and I'll start the timer.
Oh, great. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank
First of
you.
all, I wanted to say thank you to you, Deborah, RegTech Association, Nathan, and the whole team for putting on this discussion focused on scams in particular. Such an important topic for us. So at FeatureSpace, we're on a mission to make the world a safer place to transact. Nathan, next slide, please. So our clients essentially implement our solutions and see an immediate impact day one to fight financial crime. We have over 80 clients globally and 200,000 plus indirectly using our solutions, and we're trusted by many in the industry. That includes major banks, fintechs, acquirers, and processors, and many of those are in APAC. And conscious of time, Deborah and Nathan, I'll say next slide so that we can keep moving. So how do we do that? With FeatureSpace, we have technology developed out of Cambridge University that really focuses on what is good behavior or normal behavior. So we don't go off to look at what's bad and then identify fraud. We focus on what is good behavior. And when we look at good behavior, bad behavior stands out in real time and stands out as unusual. So we use a holistic understanding from multiple data sources to make decisions and prevent fraud before it happens in high volume, low latency, and real time. Next slide, please. So we fight across 5 areas of focus. First area is around cards and preventing card fraud. Second, payments. Third, merchant and acquiring fraud. We also have solutions which focus on application fraud in high volume situations. And we also have anti-money laundering, but focused on transaction monitoring. Next slide, please, Nathan. But today, given the topic, I'm just going to talk a little bit around our scam detect capability. Next slide. So Scam Detect is a FeatureSpace product that's been proven in many jurisdictions to provide a score that can identify some of the most challenging scam types. On the technology side, we host the solution. It's very much plug and play and is offered and designed to provide protection to detect and disrupt scams from day one without the need for any historic data and no complex implementation project. What we do is we monitor inbound and outbound, account to account, cross-border transactions to look for and score transactions. But what we don't need is any sensitive payment information. We don't need names, we don't need card numbers, account numbers, etc. So if we look at the next slide, please, what is the advantage of Scam Detect? Again, we don't need that PII. It's one of the key focuses. We have an award-leading model that can pick up fraud that's missed by many other solutions. And it is a relatively simple and easy implementation. There's no rip and replace of existing solutions, no complex changes to your core banking platforms, your card platforms, or any other system you might have. It's a minimal resource requirement to pick up and identify scams as they come through your system and detect and disrupt those in real time. Next slide, please. So we'd like to suggest that in Australia and other markets, Scam Detect could become your bank or your fintech's loyal guard dog. It's plug and play. We've disrupted over 200 million so far in fraud scams that could have taken place. And we are finding additional scams using our adaptive behavioral analytics that aren't being found by existing lines of defense. So being prompt and timely. Next slide, please, Nathan. I'll just finish with my contact details. There's a QR code and I'll pop this in the chat, but we'd love to talk to you at a later stage if you're interested to learn about Scam Detect and the ability to detect and disrupt scams. Thanks, Deborah. I hope you're happy I overachieved on time.
Thank you. You did so well that I wasn't even ready to turn my camera back on. Thank you, Philip. Excellent
Cheers.
work. If there are any questions for Philip, please pop those in the chat. And if there's anything that you want people to know, Philip, please do pop that in the chat as well. So my great pleasure now to start the clock on our good friend Chillip from Leap Expert. And Chillip is beaming in from...
Hey, Deb. I'm actually in beautiful South Australia, of all places.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Not far from
Mixing
you.
it up.
Yeah.
Well done. I'll start your timer now. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you all for joining. I'm part of the Leap Experts team here, and I'd like to take you through some of the headlines recently. Next, please. As you can see, again, last month, over several $1 million worth of fines again for investment advisors using off-channel communications or primarily instant messaging. We see other government verticals and legal having their own challenges with managing instant messaging. Now, just 2 days ago, so hot off the press, Singapore announced their 2024 scams and cybercrimes. And they mentioned an 11%, almost 11% increase in reports, total losses of over $1 billion Singaporean dollars, with instant messaging as the top contact method that was exploited by scammers, and with WhatsApp and Telegram being the most popular methods. Next, please. So our solution addresses how enterprises can use instant messaging within a controlled and secured environment. Next, please. So as you can see here, we enable customers to communicate with only official, verified, and approved business accounts. No more personal text messaging or personal numbers, only official and verified accounts of the world's leading messaging apps. Now, customers are then reassured they're communicating with their service provider and not with any potential scammers and fraudsters. Additionally, we've launched our AI-powered module, Maxon Communication Intelligence, which leads us to the topic of this session, fraud and scams. Next, please. So one of our long-standing clients, HSBC, has been using Leap Expert among thousands of employees in over a dozen countries. So they've developed with us a messaging impersonation detection solution. Next, please. As you can see, after a quick onboarding process where legal disclaimers and consent has been given by the customer, Jenny in this case, can securely chat with her relationship manager, Sean, who's at Leap Expert Financial Services. From this verified and approved WhatsApp account, Jenny knows that this is not a fraudster or a scammer. Next, please. So using our AI detection and verification, we are able to analyze and learn the messaging patterns of this client based on tone, style, grammar, use of emojis, capitalization, etc. It then compares these patterns with their typical messaging and detects any significant deviations. Next, please. Sean has immediately been notified in this messaging app that his client's WhatsApp may be compromised based on our detection of certain inconsistencies in the communication. So that WhatsApp account may have been taken over, somebody may be a family friend or somebody in the household may have taken over that account and playing on chatting with their service provider. So he has to take extra precautions on what to do next. And we allow the ability to alert people such as compliance officers or managers that this is occurring. Maxon helps us expand these use cases for our messaging and communication platform across fraud management as well as analytics, and delivering a personalized AI-based communication, always in a collaborative but always governed manner. Next, please. And just a bit of background about Leap Expert. Obviously, we're very proud of our recognition, with only this year being named as a visionary in Gartner's latest Magic Quadrant for digital communications governance and archiving, and also having won 2 awards in the wealth tech industry, both in Switzerland and US for risk management solution and front office solutions. And of course, I have to give a shout out to the RegTech Association and being named awards in APAC as well as in UK and EMEA. Next, please. And the key to our success is our rich ecosystem of partners. So I'd love to speak with other technology services providers where we can add value to your products and services and how we can help your clients. Next slide. Thank you. Feel free to reach out and happy to have a discussion.
Chillip, right on 5 minutes. Perfect. You've been practicing. Very, very good. Thank you so much. That was excellent and great shout out. We've just extended our awards for this year by another week. So if you didn't get your application in, please make sure that you get it in over the next week so you can be like Leap Expert and win an award. Thank you, Prem. Last but not least, please stay with us. Prem is our last presentation of the day. So Prem, I'm going to start the clock for you now. Thank you very much for being patient.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Hi, everyone. We are delighted to be presenting at this event once again. This time we came up with a topic of using intuition to detect frauds and scams. Next, please. Ingenuous is a decision support company. We are end-to-end financial crime prevention solution provider with footprints in multiple countries. We are based in Melbourne. Ours is a flexible software that can be installed on-prem or as a cloud service. We have a wide range of customers from banking, financials, insurance, super, payments and e-commerce, government, retail, bullion trading, and betting and gaming. Our software Intuition delivers credit decisioning and financial crime prevention in a single real-time platform. It includes lending, onboarding, and monitoring products. Next, please. I would like to explain Intuition with 2 examples. The first one is a real-time account blocking. Intuition can be used to detect the incoming transactions that are suspicious or likely to be the result of fraud or scam. Intuition uses dynamic rule engine. For example, we can alert a new account that suddenly receives a large incoming transfer and can block the account in real time and freeze the funds until the transaction can be verified. There are some examples I have put up there. That's how we can define a rule in Intuition. For example, the first one, the first direct debit on account after status change. You can pick those fields and define those values that's available on the right-hand side as an image. You can deploy the rule and it will create an alert for you. Next, please. Say when a customer is being scammed, the money is transferred to an overseas account. In Intuition, you can define rules to do the real-time screening on the cross-border transactions. Mainly when the duration between the funds received and the transfer out is within very short period of time, you can pick those features and define those rules, and it will create an alert for you in real time. Next, please. And along with the rules, Intuition provides the machine learning capability. For example, the amount significantly greater than the declared income and the account balance is less than 5% of the incoming transaction amount. You can train your own machine learning models. The model can learn the patterns and it can expand the boundary and expand the capability of identifying the frauds. And the model will give a result as an explanation plot, which is shown on the bottom, those 2 plots, instead of just being a black box model, and you can investigate based on that. Next, please. Intuition also uses generative AI to enhance the fraudulent patterns for the machine learning model to foresee the upcoming new frauds and scams. Next, please. The next example is the detecting mule accounts. It is important to detect mule accounts opening during onboarding so that can be closed or rejected. Most mule accounts are opened digitally, so biometrics became relevant. So Intuition can use multiple sources of data to verify all account opening aspects such as biometric, ID verification, watch list, application, fraud prevention, risk assessments, those kind of stuffs. And here is a small sample scorecard alert, which highlights all the specific features for the mule investigation. Next, please. And here is an example of biometric information is checked against the rules and its specific alerts where user can do the investigations. Next, please. Intuition offers advanced watchlist screening. using the Dow Jones Risk and Compliance database and Refinitive's WellCheck, you can seamlessly integrate their APIs into Intuition to do the real-time checks. Next, please. And here is a sample of the customer risk rating rule alerts. That's a set of rules that triggered the alert. You can see the screenshot over there. And the review process in Intuition, how it can be done under the review screen. That's a sample on the right. Next, please. Intuition also uses visual intelligence, the graph network analytics, to find the suspicious links in the accounts database or customer database or the transaction database. You can find those links and you can action on it. Next, please. Yep, this is what we would like to share with you. Thank you for your time, and thank you by Prem from Ingenuous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prem. And just in the few minutes that we've got left, if you've got any questions for Prem, please pop those in the chat for me. Thank you very much. So I wanted to thank very much today all of the speakers, George and Rhonda, and also for the technology companies. And I did promise in the wrap that I would share the results of the survey that we did earlier. And the good news is for the tech companies is that the different priorities for different ways to fight scams and frauds, tech was the #1 result there, followed by public awareness, and #3 was regulatory settings. And even though it was only 44% who said yes, that they had been scammed, and 48% said no, there were 6% who were unsure. So perhaps those 6% actually had been scammed and didn't realise it. But if you just look at those numbers, that's about half the people, which is a lot of people in the world that are currently being scammed. So thanks to George for suggesting to us that we pop that poll in there. Now, there is a quality poll. I'd really appreciate it if you could complete that for us, please. That helps us improve the quality of these programs going forward. I just wanted to take a few quick seconds to talk about some things coming up. This area of fraud and scams is very important to the RegTech Association going forward. So much so that at our Accelerate RegTech APAC program, which is on the 8th of April, we will have a dedicated fraud and scams roundtable, and we'll also be doing a dedicated roundtable in London in May. That hasn't been opened yet, but will be soon. So next coming up, we have regulatory compliance, an event just like this on the 20th of March. As I said, please do register for the conference. That way you'll be in with a chance to attend the roundtables. Please don't forget to get in your awards now. We've just extended that by a week. So you've got another week to get your award submission in. And we've got a whole bunch of things happening regionally soon. We've got a RegTech Association hosting a roundtable at the Japan FinTech Festival in Tokyo next week. We've got the Black Swan Summit coming up later in March. We also have a roundtable there. George mentioned the GASA Global Anti-Scam Summit in London also in March. And then a shout out to the FinTech Marketplace on the 24th of July in Sydney, where we've partnered with them, and there'll be a dedicated RegTech zone. So if you're interested in participating in that RegTech zone and being part of the RegTech family at that event, please do reach out to us and we'll connect you up with the good folk from FinTech Marketplace. I think that is all that we've got time for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you note will go out tomorrow. There will be a recording of this for those that were not able to make it. Thanks so much. And there you are. If you need to contact us, you know where to find us. Thanks very much for being here with us today. Thank you.